Q&A with TNA.
Hey Prana Boosters, welcome to our next podcast. This is another Q&A with TNA while we're having our morning coffee. Say hi.
Just don't tell them that it's noon.
Oh, all right.
So it's not officially morning, but I think we always tell them that.
It's morning somewhere on Earth.
Right. Okay.
So today's topic is going to be something about emotions. Emotions are important.
Right.
And let's tell them the story that we witnessed a few days ago.
Okay, so it was very unexpected. We were actually just out driving with the girls. We went to the library that day, and then we were going to stop by another store, and we pulled into the shopping center. And as we pulled in, another car was getting ready to pull out, and I could see that they were violently fighting in the car, with each other.
Was the car shaking?
I don't recall that. They were, though.
Okay.
And I was a little concerned. I was looking.
And the girls noticed it too.
Yeah, we all noticed, and then I think they did. And then
Bella did, I'm not sure.
They stopped the car as we were pulling in. They stopped, and all of a sudden the girl got out and started running away from the car. And the first thing I noticed was that she was very upset, very distraught. She had no shoes on. I don't know why she didn't have shoes on. And then the guy that was driving the car pulled into forward into the intersection, into traffic, and then he slammed on the brakes. This was all while we were just turning into the shopping center, so this happened super duper fast. He got out of the car, slammed on the brakes, got out of the car, left the car door open, the car running, took his cell phone, his mobile phone.
Well, you think it's his, maybe it's hers.
Whatever, took a mobile device. Right, we don't know.
Right.
And smashed it all over the ground and then ran away from the car. So he left the car in the middle of the road. The girl was just standing there in shock, not knowing what to do. And it took her a couple seconds, I think, to decide. So she tried to pick up what she could of this device and then got in the car and drove the car away. I was, of course, obsessed with trying to figure out where were they going and what was happening and where did the guy go and
You're right. He had many questions.
Yeah. So I wasn't anything more than curious, but also extremely concerned that A, they're driving under these types of conditions. B, they must be really hurting. Something bad is going on.
Right.
C, they're not able to handle their emotions in a healthy way because they're driving a vehicle that can harm themselves or another person. And they're not even, I don't know what the word is. They're not even educated enough to not drive in that state of mind.
It's almost like being intoxicated. When you have those emotions, you really should not be driving at all.
Well, to be honest with you, I don't think you should be doing anything in that type of an emotional trauma.
Right.
That state of an emotional emergency.
You got to pause.
You can be cooking, you can be driving, you can be really doing anything. I mean, the problem is I don't think that anybody is really educated in recognizing when we're in that state. We just kind of go from 0 to 100.
Right.
And we have never been taught or
People are whoa, what is this?
Modeled oh, wow, what do I do? To have that own self-awareness where you would say to yourself okay, I am not in the right frame of mind. I need to sit down and take a couple deep breaths and figure out my next move. Instead, we kind of just do stuff through it, which I think is very dangerous.
Yeah, because that could spiral into something even larger, and that's
right.
So it's important to take a moment and realize it. But this also led us to talk about the fact that this is not being taught anywhere.
Right. Later that day, we actually ended up at Barnes & Noble, and we were looking through all these books. So as everybody knows, we homeschool our girls. And we were looking through a lot of educational books and some testing that Bella's interested in doing. And not in any of these books was there any type of education or knowledge or training for emotions.
Right.
I mean, it was math, science, spelling. They literally care if you know the parts of speech.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking to myself, people don't even know how to use that speech in a conflict. or in an emotional situation, they're not going to like break it down and talk about adjectives and nouns and things like that. Like we are not learning like
emotional intelligence should be a topic.
Right. It's not a core training. It's not required. It's not, it's not required. I shouldn't say for sure. Like, I don't know if it's required in the workplace, but I don't think it is.
I never heard of it.
But this knowledge, you and I both went through school, through college without this type of training, or we weren't really modeled it by environment, television, society, people we know.
No.
I used to watch soap operas. So, I used to watch General Hospital. And I figured out that a huge reason that I used to watch it is because I used to watch for their reactions and how they interacted with each other. And I've always been super interested in how people handle or don't handle conflict. And, it's been sort of the whole basis of creating the Prana Boost lifestyle, the Prana Boost way, and all our teachings is learning how to acknowledge our emotions, have awareness of our emotions, understand emotions, and learn what to do with our emotions.
Absolutely.
So I don't watch that anymore. I haven't watched that in years.
So is there like a good source of information that you recommend that you enjoy reading, or would you say it's just non-existent?
Well, to be honest with you, I bet there is, but I haven't really studied too much outside of myself. What I've done is applied a lot of my readings and teachings to this topic because of my interest in it. But think about it. I mean, as parents, the reason that I actually looked into nonviolent communication was to try to figure out how to handle conflict and emotions in a healthy way.
Right.
And I will tell you, this is something I write about, and Dr. Marshall Rosenberg teaches components of nonviolent communication. And the very first one, I write about it, I talk about it, I always say, the very first component of nonviolent communication is to observe without evaluating, which I think hardly any of us do. I mean, we don't learn how to do that anywhere. What does that really look like? It says this means we can learn to communicate without judging, criticizing, analyzing, blaming, or diagnosing others.
If you stop an average person on the street and ask them what are emotions, I bet a lot of people wouldn't even be able to really answer it. Like, where do they come from? What are they?
Right, and I don't think people actually understand.
Or what is their power, really,
I don't think any of us really truly learned the importance of emotions, honestly. Okay, well, I think that we should talk about, you're saying, what are emotions? Emotions are feelings that I believe come from thoughts that we're having. Emotions are reactions. Most of the time, our emotions are being triggered from past programming, from our childhood, from how we were raised.
Maybe watching our parents.
From what we observed, from watching TV, from watching, people in our society and in our communities. Emotions can be triggered by our fears. And typically emotions, I think, are often come up from miscommunication and assumptions. So we could actually assume an entire drama in our head and create emotions that are stirred up in us, which are feelings that are not right or wrong. They're coming up for us for whatever reason, for whatever belief we have at that time. And we don't really know what to do with them. We don't know a healthy way to honor them, acknowledge them, work with them, and work through them. So many times this, results in anger or lashing out at people for no reason. I shouldn't say for no reason, because we actually think we have a valid reason, but that's not the way to handle it. That's not a healthy way for either party. And also emotions can, when unfelt and hidden underneath the surface, result in physical illness.
Yes.
So it's an extremely important topic. It's huge. It's like my biggest passion, actually, is emotions. So I have so much to say about it. I'm not exactly sure
how to start.
No, what to discuss.
I have seen it. Presented.
Wait. Let's talk about what you do in our family when emotions get heated.
Yeah.
Because you're not a huge fan of emotions you consider them.
Well, when I was younger, many times I would lose my temper, but now I'm able to recognize them. And
No, but how do you feel when someone else is having an emotional meltdown?
How do I feel?
It usually creates
I
a little anxiety in you.
It does, but then I also switched to kind of an observer, you know?
Well, that took like 14 years out of the 15 years that we've been
And then you are continuously
parents.
teaching me to see it as, you know, somebody got hurt physically. So now I try to view emotions as this person needs help. And it doesn't mean that I have to engage or get heated up. It just means they are, you know, they need attention and I have to pause, right?
Right? You're like trying to go over it. No, but usually, not as a joke, but I think as a coping mechanism, you usually go oy vey.
Oh yeah, oy vey.
Yeah, like oh gosh, it's happening. Like
Right.
I don't know what to do. Please help.
Yeah.
But
well, a lot of times I switch to, in my mind, I kind of go metaphysical and I do more of a kind of a vibrational thing. But
well,
then
maybe now.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the early times.
Oh,
the early
early
times when emotions got heated in our house, and I was like, you know, working on all this, you know, knowledge and education about it. What's the first thing we really do when somebody has an emotion?
Throw something.
Well, that was your past history. Judge.
Judge, of
We
course.
judge their emotions. So we decide in our heads if their emotion is valid, if they should be having that emotion, and we're judging them on the fact that they are having that emotion, which
Right.
is a really hard thing to do for kids. Because
Where I used
kids,
to say, suck it up, soldier, remember?
yeah, that was pleasant. So we've come a long way. I guess we should tell people, whoever's listening, if they don't know our background, we've been together almost 24 years. So we've, in essence, grown up together. And when we met each other, neither one of us had much emotional intelligence
Right.
to handle conflict. I do remember early on in our relationship, we were fighting a lot, and not nice fighting, like traumatic fighting. And I think you and I started to read and started to do a lot of personal growth and self-help, because I do remember saying, if we're going to fight, we need to learn how to fight fair and fight so that we don't hurt the other person
Yeah.
while doing it.
One of the things that helped me a lot is to realize or recognize that we, even though we're both upset, or, you know, I'm upset or you're upset, whatever, that we're on the same team. And that helped me a lot. I think that was the very first step towards realizing and paying attention to the importance of emotions, knowing that in 10, 15 minutes when we make up, you know, we're going to look back, and that's so important. So that's one of the hugest things that helped me a lot, looking at you and saying, wait a minute, we're in the same team here. I know that, you know,
We're having emotions right
we're
now.
having emotions, but we want the same result.
Right. And the thing is that, I mean, that took us years. People should understand, years and years, like 2 decades to learn this. Like,
Right.
This did not come easily because of the fact that we did not learn this anywhere else. We did not learn this in school. We don't learn this anywhere. I mean, you don't go to a family party and discuss emotions, or like
Right.
you don't talk about it. People don't talk about emotions. It's very hush hush.
Yeah.
And if you show emotions in front of people, they're usually like embarrassed or worried about their image, or like. So very early on, I mean, I wanted to make sure that our girls felt comfortable to be their authentic selves. And I started to study neuroscience and quantum physics and child psychology. And I understood child development, that this is what I used to tell you. Our children don't have the capability. They're not born with the type of brain power to handle their emotions. That's why we're there to help them. And so we're not supposed to join their emotional breakdown. We're supposed to help them through their emotional breakdowns. And so many times, you know, especially like as the kids got older, and this is what I think happens to a lot of parents, kids start to lash out and blame you. And the reason they blame you or a sibling or a friend or Elmo is because it feels better. There's a little bit of sense of relief that it's not their fault, or they don't. Anyway, that's another topic, but I'm just saying they lash out at us and we want to teach them a lesson or tell them that it's inappropriate or quiet them, you know? So Bella and I were just at the grocery store I don't know, like 2 weeks ago or whatever, and there was this little girl crying, this little tiny girl, like probably 2 years old, walking around with her little purse on her shoulder and a little ponytail, and she was crying like hysterical, and the dad just walked away. He just couldn't even handle the fact that she was crying in public, and the mom was yelling at her, like making it worse, telling her to stop crying, and they don't really have the ability in their brain to stop. They kind of have to like get it out and move through the feelings, not ignore the feelings or delete the feelings. It's extremely hard to stop when you're in that moment.
Right.
I don't know why this just came to my mind, but I do remember early on for us, I used to tell you, and then I taught the girls this, that you never want to leave evidence of the discomfort and the anger and the emotions that you're going through, because later when you realign your energy and you come back, like you said, you're going to have to deal with something that happened during that anger. Instead of managing the emotion, you're going to have to manage whatever you did or whatever type of destruction happened during that emotional meltdown.
But before you get too far away from this little girl, can you tell us what you think would be a proper way of handling it? Because so many parents go through it, and I remember a few times.
Oh, many times we had that.
Yeah. Like what do you do?
Well, I think one of the first things you have to do is stop whatever you're doing. So I did create something to manage emotional emergencies called Prana CPR, and it's my own version of emotional CPR. So the first step of Prana CPR is comfort. You got to stop whatever you're doing. That means pull over the car or stop the grocery cart, and get down to their level and figure out what you need to do to comfort that child. So see, we as a society, we don't view emotional outbursts or emotional breakdowns as the same as if somebody was on the floor bleeding or having a seizure or a heart attack. Like we don't view it the same. We don't honor it. We don't treat it with the same level of respect. So we usually just ignore it or work through it. And many times that's just because that's how we were treated when we were younger, or that's how we've seen society treat people. We don't usually acknowledge the fact that they actually need help. So the very first step is C, for comfort. You find a way to comfort them, whether that means
it doesn't mean you have to solve the problem, right?
No, in fact, you can't, because you actually can't solve it while they're breaking down.
Because if she's crying to buy all the candy in the store, you can't solve it.
Well, you have to comfort the emotion. And then once the child can calm down and you can be calm and you guys are both coming from a place of, sanity, then you could decide, why does the child want the candy? Maybe the child's hungry. Maybe the child...
So you get to their level, and how do you calm them down if they're young?
You comfort them. You stop whatever you're doing, and nothing is more important than taking care of that crying child, whatever you have to do.
Just being there.
Just being there, being quiet, hugging them, telling them you're there for them, asking them what they need, getting them a drink of water. There's so many things. It just depends, because...
We're saying things like, I hear you, right?
Yeah, I hear you. I understand you want the candy, but you can't rationalize. You can't even talk them through it until they can catch their breath and calm down.
Right.
So you can say, listen, I wasn't paying attention before. Now you've got my attention, because they're freaking out in public. But most of the time, parents are very worried about what everyone else thinks. So they don't, or they're busy or they're in a hurry. So they just completely ignore the fact that the kid is crying, or they're used to the kid crying. They say, oh, he does this every time we come to the store. Like, they're not doing anything proactive to help that child have a good experience at the store. And then in turn, the parent would have a good experience. So it's acknowledging their emotions, and it's really understanding at the core that their emotions really, truly matter, even if they think it's just about candy.
Right.
Maybe it's not about the candy. Maybe it is. Maybe they've had candy before and they love candy and it tastes amazing. And the mom has said yes before. Now the kid is devastated because this time they said no. Like,
I love how you say, you don't have to solve it, because that was my light bulb moment. Because, I'm by nature, I like to solve things. So when you say just comfort, it makes a lot of sense. So the first step...
Comfort might even mean just being quiet and being there.
So the first step of the CPR is to comfort. What would be the second step?
Well, wait, before I tell you that, I was just going to tell you the other thing is you have to figure out with your own child what it means to comfort them. Some of them don't want to be touched. Some of them do want to be held. Right. Some of them, you have to honor and respect the individual needs of the child. But first, comfort. Find a way to comfort them and help them through this emergency. I just wanted to mention something more about the comfort. At that time when we're actually comforting the child, we actually have to find a way to comfort ourselves, because we realize once we start to acknowledge our own emotions, that we get very triggered and upset. If a child gets upset or another person gets upset, we get triggered. So while we're judging, diagnosing, blaming, feeling bad about ourselves, that's all happening.
It's contagious.
Yeah. And so, yeah, emotions are magnetic. Emotions are contagious. So the thing about it is in that moment that we're trying to give comfort to our child or to a person who's we're doing the Prana Boost CPR, we also have to comfort ourselves. So there's many ways you could do that. Even just taking like 3 deep breaths, like just stopping what you're doing and take a deep breath.
Or just even by realizing what's happening, right?
Right. But if we cannot judge the other person's reaction, we can help them. So imagine it like, this is what I write about in my book. Imagine it, you're like a paramedic or an emergency room trauma doctor. Like, you actually have to strip away all of your ego and all of your taking things personally. You have to actually go in and help them recover. And you do that by actually not judging. So you don't think they're wrong for doing it. You don't think they're...
you don't match their wounds.
No, but you don't judge it. You just come in like a paramedic and you say, what do you need? Like, you just help them. And then later you can deal with it. So the second step is pause. The second part of the CPR is pause. So you're pausing and you're thinking about what to do, and you might not even have to solve it. Just the actual allowing of the emotions to come out usually results in a solution. They either feel better, they forget about it, or you can then, calmly talk about it, but you must pause. And the third step in the Prana Boost CPR is reconnect. It's very important that you reconnect with this person who's having the emotional meltdown before you even try to solve it, especially if you were busy judging, criticizing, or blaming them for having the emotion. You have to reconnect. You have to tell them that you're on their team and remind them that you're there to help them and you're on their side. And together you're going to figure it out. So nobody feels alone and nobody needs to be upset. It's solvable. Marie Forleo told a story where she said her mom taught her everything is figure outable. So I once told the girls that because I really, really liked that. I said sometimes we don't know how something's going to work out. So I tell the girls, like, what it meant to me was together we can figure out anything. Either we will figure out what to do or we'll figure out how to handle our emotions that are going to come up because something didn't work out. But together we're going to get through it. So... Right. By the way, this is like my biggest topic.
This is just a little sample.
Yeah, there's a million things we could talk about. But I was very, just to summarize, I was very thrown off by seeing this emotional outburst, which is not the first time we've seen it. We see it a million times at Disney. We see it all the time. That's why I wrote my Disney article. It happens every day. We see it in public. We see people have road rage. We see people have reactions. We could talk about it on another podcast. Remember the lady at Barnes & Noble who lost her mind?
Yeah.
And I had to literally talk her down off of a ledge, you know? And this was in a public place, in a bookstore, in a kids department.
Everyone was out to get her.
Yeah. And so anyway, long story short, we have a lot of topics on this. But we did get to introduce Prana Boost CPR.
All right. We're well over 20 minutes. Okay. I think this is a good place to wrap it up.
Okay.
So thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us on Q&A with TNA. And also, please visit pranaboost.com and check out Prana Boost page on Instagram.
Yeah. And also pranaboostparenting.com, too. Has a lot more information.
Awesome. All right. Until next time.
Bye. Whoopsie, you thought the show was over, but there's more. So the truth is, confession, here's what happens to me. During a show, I think about things that we want to talk about and things we want to say, but I truly download more information right after we press stop. Mm-hmm. So here's just a few extra notes that I was really thinking of. Do you mind if we talk about them?
No, I don't. Go
okay.
for it.
All right. So really, I just wanted to get across, I wanted everybody to understand that, and it's hard to talk about this topic in such a small amount of time, but this is why we're going to add to it. So I really just wanted to let everybody know that emotions are okay. I think that we don't tell ourselves that, and we don't teach our kids that, and we don't mention that enough in life, that they're definitely okay, and they're what makes us human, and they're necessary.
So you don't promote being an emotionless robot?
No.
Okay.
No, absolutely not. We need our emotions. Emotions are internal guidance system. They're like our internal GPS. They guide us. So we have to make friends with our emotions. We have to learn how to identify emotions.
You don't recommend avoiding emotions.
No. If you avoid emotions, you will get sick. You will feel the physical effects. You will have many more.
It's almost like a blockage.
You'll have a lot of consequences.
You're blocking your own energy, right?
Yeah. You want to learn how to identify your emotions, feel your emotions, manage your emotions, but definitely not delete your emotions. And we're not really, I mean, you didn't grow up learning about emotions or feeling that it was safe to have
What are
them.
emotions again? I'm just kidding.
Okay. Anyway, I believe that we just have to learn how to align our energy, and we have to learn how to manage emotions that come up, but we have to accept them and we have to allow them. And we can really train ourselves to do this in nonviolent ways. So we can learn how to express these emotions instead of holding them in, which hurts us more than letting them out. So, just as we learn how to walk and do math and everything that they want you to learn in life in school or cook, learning to manage your emotions is a skill. So it's something that you can learn and be better at and
it's much
train
easier
yourself.
to manage happy emotions when you get a big present than being negative emotions.
Right, but that is only because we are taught that negative emotions are not allowed. Negative emotions can get you punished. Negative emotions can cause conflict.
Well, I mean by default, you know what I mean? Like autopilot. You're like,
right,
happy.
You don't really have to manage a happy emotion. You have to manage a negative one because there's going to be consequences. There's going to be effects of a negative emotion. So what are some negative emotions? Fear, anger, sadness. Yeah, some people can't even handle your sadness. Some people, if you're like disappointment, some people can't handle it. And the other thing is people try to fix your emotions for you and clean it up real fast so that you don't have to make them feel uncomfortable with your negative emotions.
Right.
But the truth is, if we can learn how to become a support system for each other and recognize the emotions and the importance of these emotions that are so-called negative, we can understand that they have their place as well. Like they're very necessary.
I did notice for me personally, if I ever, I mean, it doesn't happen a lot, but if I do get into negative emotion, arena, then I just simply change the state of my mind or my thoughts, and that right away pulls me out. It's amazing for me personally.
Yes, you make a very good point. But see, you're actually showing our progression in how that we actually had to learn methods and ways to shift how we feel. Right? But first you have to recognize the emotion, then you have to feel the emotion.
Maybe we should make a second show about this.
Yeah, I think we need a part two, definitely. Yeah,
absolutely.
the importance of, let's call it the importance of managing emotions. Okay, so you guys, part 2 was just created. We'll record another podcast. But see, it's really important to understand that years ago you wouldn't have done that. You didn't have the skills to understand.
Well, I didn't know I had the control over it.
Right, you didn't know. Right, but you also understand that you have to feel it first, and it's okay.
Right.
Once you have dealt with it and felt it, then it's okay to shift it.
You don't have to marinate in it.
Right, you don't have to stay in it that long, but you do have to still experience it.
Right.
And it's okay to feel it. I mean, so obviously our company is called Prana Boost, so we focus on raising your vibration, understanding when your vibration is low, understanding when you want to boost yourself, change your mindset, change how you're feeling, but you don't want to do that before feeling what you're truly feeling. That's sort of like acknowledge it and then do it after. The other thing I want to talk about too, and we could do in the next show too, is the importance of the fact that most people get punished for their emotions. Either people stop talking to them, people walk away from them. And if kids have negative emotions, especially, they're considered disrespectful, they're talking back, they're considered rude, when really they're literally just showing how they feel. And then if they are actually punished for that,
they'll suppress their feelings.
Yes.
They'll change.
Yes, and then they'll punish other people for having emotions because they were trained that that's what you do. So
talking about creating corporate robots.
So anyway, honestly, I just want to say that in our home, our mindset has really shifted after all these years and all this training and all this studying to the fact that, before I mentioned that you and I wanted to learn how to fight fair, we really got to a point where we're understanding that fighting has really become unnecessary. I'm not going to say we don't have disagreements or arguments, but usually they're all because of our mood. They're all because of where we're feeling at that moment and our state of mind, and how reactive we are, how sensitive we are to what somebody else says. But fighting is really unnecessary if you are actually truly connected to a person and you trust that they have your back.
Right.
You don't have to fight for anything. You can share, you can communicate. So because we spend so much time communicating, clarifying, and connecting, this is all like preventative measures that are in place for when emotions get heated. And if you don't have a plan for when emotions get heated, like a fire drill or something, you will have a situation that is unmanageable,
right,
or leaves a lot of
random outcomes,
right, or random outbursts.
Right.
So a lot of this work is before. A lot of this work is preventative, and you do this proactively, to prevent any type of chaos or violent outbursts. It's a big commitment, actually.
It is.
So, okay. So, Alan wants to call this an afterthought. I think we need to come up with a cute thing, because the truth is this might happen many times after the show, because if I step away and I think about it, or I, like you said, marinate in it, or even just at night I sleep on it, I sometimes come up with more things I want to tell everyone.
Absolutely. All right.
So sometimes when you hear the music, it's not really the end. Or are you going to insert the music again?
No more music.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, guys. Stand by for part 2 of Afterthought.
Okay, not part 2, the afterthought, but part 2 of this podcast is going to be something like the importance of managing emotions, and we can give everybody some ideas of how to manage emotions in a really short podcast.
Beautiful.
Bye.
Bye-bye.